Greetings from Transylvania. That's a strange way of saying hello.
Oh, I guess we're gonna have to get used to it.
So, to start off laughing, I like everyone, I was shocked by that original trailer that came out a couple of months ago. I mean, we were all asking ourselves after we watched it, was that real? Is this like a joke? Is this a prank? Is this actually a real thing that Universal spent money on and gave to Rob Zombie, a filmmaker who I'm not exactly the biggest fan of? And it was real, and we were all shocked by it, and we're like, okay, well, let's see what this is. And then we heard rumors that it had a $40 million budget, and I was like, how? Because the thing looks so incredibly cheap. How's that possible? Did Rob Zombie and his wife, Sheri Moon Zombie, and actor, quote unquote, did they steal the money? They pocketed it? It's like, then they're saying like that wasn't really that expensive. Again, it was all over the place. It just looked terrible, you know. It looked terrible. And now it's finally come out. You know, it's a straight to VOD release. No surprise there. It's also on Netflix. Yeah, but hey, if you want to buy it on Blu-ray, you can. And it's on various other platforms, I'm sure. I'm guessing it's on Peacock too, you know. But for those who don't know the plot, such as it is, the premise, you know, it is a prequel to the original TV series. It's not a remake of the show. It basically just chronicles the meeting and the wooing and eventual marriage between Herman Munster and Lily Munster in Transylvania, which is where they're originally from. And also dealing with this, there's a whole other subplot in the film of dealing with these gypsies who are trying to scheme and get, which is kind of like, this is kind of like a little racist. It's kind of like a little racist when you think about it, trying to take Lily's father's castle, the Count. He's just called the Count. They say Roma. You got to say Roma. They say Roma now, I guess. But that's what it is. It's like, it's still not a, that's a very dated thing that they include in this movie. But, you know, it's also, you know, the Count's dealing with the fact that he doesn't want his daughter to obviously marry Herman because he thinks he's a fucking dope, which he is. Now, listen, you know, my overall thoughts. I'm gonna start positive. I'm gonna be as positive as I possibly can in the beginning of this show. I'm not here to be mean, okay? Initially, I can understand and I can appreciate that Rob Zombie has a love for the Munsters and has been wanting to do this film for a very long time. He's talked about it. He likes this franchise. I can also respect him, you know, for wanting to not just do a paint-by-numbers remake of the original series and explore the origins of Herman Munster and Lily's romance before they're married and they had children and everything. You know, I'm like, okay, this is different. I was like, I could appreciate that. My only wish is that he was able to do any of the things he most definitely wants to do well in any capacity. In any capacity, chat. This type of film lays bare a number of things about Rob Zombie as a filmmaker. And that is his complete and total incompetence of being a filmmaker that I can take seriously. I mean, I was never a big fan of his work before this, chat. His Halloween films, his various other horror movies, The House of a Thousand Corpses, even the one that people say, like, no, this is like really good. It's one of the best horror, quote unquote, one of the best horror films of the 2000s, Devil Rejects. I'm like, I just don't like his style and his sensibilities and how he writes and directs things. And this is another example of that to me. This movie is horrifically bad. It's poorly shot. It's horribly edited and lit. The transitions in this movie feel like a PowerPoint presentation by a middle schooler. Even the font looks bad. There's font in the movie. So I'm like, why are we complaining about, like, font? Really, Chris? Yes, font. The font looks bad. Even the movie, like, at times, like, there's certain font that's next to each other that's fuzzy. And it's like, clearly you blew that up. It's almost as if a person just blew it up to match the size of the other one at the last minute. Like, listen, we don't have any time for additional editing. You do what you need to do. We got to get this in the can in the next 5 to 10 minutes by the end of the evening. All right, get moving. They're like, fuck it, okay, there we go. And it's like, wow, even the font looks terrible. It doesn't match. It just looks awkward. Everything looks cheap. Everything looks cheap in the movie. It's like Zombie raided a Party City or a Spirit of Halloween store, and he just dressed up all of his sets and actors in these incredibly inexpensive costumes. And when he doesn't use these terrible sets and these just cheap-looking props, he uses this terrible green screen. And it's so bad that at times it reminded me, it was eerily similar to something like Birdemic. Like the type of effects they were using for the green screen in the background. Like there's multiple shots of, oh, we're going to this location, and there's like birds flapping in the air and they're not moving really. And it's like, it reminds me of the birds, quote unquote, from Birdemic. Okay? And the thing is though, and this was said even when we saw the trailers, I feel like a lot of the cheapness in this movie could have been covered up if they just changed the color palette. I think it really would have helped, to black and white, which is what everyone's been saying. It could have helped in so many ways in terms of its aesthetic. It could help immerse us in the world. It can help with the lighting situation that's going on. Everything's lit so fucking flat in this movie. And nothing feels, and maybe that's Rob Zombie's intention. He doesn't want it to feel real. He doesn't want it to feel like, this is an actual castle or anything like that, or this is an actual building people are walking into, or a restaurant, or a nightclub, or a little bistro. He wants it to make it look fake, because maybe he's trying to emulate the show, the original show. What that show did, and it's not even necessary to compare this to the original show to say like, oh, see how bad this is? No, this show is bad on its own without having to compare it to the original show. But, the black and white, it worked. And Rob Zombie, I think, has said that the studio wouldn't let him film in black and white, but I'm like, listen, Jesus Christ, just do it. If they were looking at this in color and go like, ooh, this is just not looking good, okay, go ahead and do it in black and white. That's what they should have done, because it would have helped with the aesthetic if they just changed color. But another thing too, I noticed the sound design. The sound design is bad in it, and there are so many. You will hear the same canned wolf howling effect multiple times in the movie. It's the same exact one. They rarely change it. Thunderbolts, all that shit. It's just again. It's so repetitive. And because the movie is so long, it's an hour and 45 minutes, then when they do it, you do a drinking game. Every time that you hear a wolf howl, you'll be dead by the end of the movie because it's so long, and they'd use it so many times. But it'll be fun. You'll like it eventually through the first third, but then the next 2/3 you'll be crying. Some people are not, like, it's just basic filmmaking that Rob Zombie doesn't seem to know how to do. Like, he has the audio for some of his actors. It's either they're too quiet sometimes or they're blowing their mic out. And it's like, this is like basic shit you should know when making a movie, And it's just, he's not even doing the bare necessities. And even like sound effects, how it matches up with objects, that's awkward and it's not in sync. So I noticed this in particular. This is very early in the movie where you have the Roma, trying to, they're gonna deal with this werewolf guy, and they want to basically swindle the castle out from under the count. Herman's eventual father-in-law, right? Grandpa Munster, of course. And there's this thing where one of the Roma, he has like a cleaver, and what he does is he puts he swings the cleaver down, but he doesn't really swing it like, he can't even make a swing look natural. Like, you're like, oh, he's going to do the swing, and the blade's going to go into the wood. Like, and it makes that swinging effect, right? The thing is, when the actor does it, he holds it just like this, and he goes, bah. And so the the handle just hits the table like this, but you still hear the blade swish and hit and it sounds like it hits the wood. It's like, I could tell that nothing, that didn't sync up at all. And it's that cheapness. It's that lack of attention to details in the movie that they're just standing out to me, and that's the thing. The look of the film aside, the aesthetic of the film aside, the terrible sound direction, the terrible direction in general. It's the writing and the acting is the thing that makes this movie as bad as it is. everyone is playing it broad, but they're not given anything funny or wholesome or endearing to say in the movie. It's just a tidal wave after wave of just being hit over. It's like you're hit, chat, like when you're in the ocean. I don't know if you've ever been in the ocean or on a beach, or when you're surfing and you're just hit by these fucking waves and you're tumbling. That's what it feels like with this dialogue and with these jokes, quote unquote. People are just acting obnoxious and hammy, even when it doesn't call for it in the movie. There's no charm to anyone. There's no warmth to anyone. They're just cheap props. They're just like everything else in the movie. They're cheap. And, you know, and this, I will compare it to the original show here. Like, listen, yes, it's a monster family living in middle America, and they get into goofy shenanigans. But listen, when I think of the Munsters, like one of the scenes that I think of is with with Herman Munster in the original show, where he's talking to his son about, you know, people are different and it's okay if that they're different. We're all, you know, we can be all shapes and sizes, all different colors, you know, some ugly, some handsome, like your father, you know. But I was like, that's what this movie needs. It needs warmth, and none of that is there. And just the actors themselves, like every single person is miscast in this movie. No one, I feel like, does a good job at all. And I you know, I typically say, listen, I blame the actor less and less nowadays. I usually say, it's like, listen, you can be the most talented actor in the world, but if you're given a shit script, if you're getting shit direction, I'm not going to give a shit performance. That happens, you know. But this movie, I'm like, some of these people I'm unfamiliar with, like the guy they have in playing Herman Munster, Jeff Daniel Phillips. I don't know what he was going for. I really don't. One, it's like clearly like I'm going to do my own version of this character. And he sounds differently than the Herman Munster. Like, I know he's supposed to be younger, but still, how much younger are we going? His voice is just grating, and what he's given. Again, it's those kinds of, it's the jokes and the laughing, and just how obnoxious he is. He's being very broad, but his the way he talks, it just feels very grating. It's like, ugh, every time he speaks. Sheri Moon Zombie. I mean, listen, it's Sheri Moon Zombie, chat. She's one of those people. Like, I'm not too familiar with Jeff Daniel Phillips. Like, I don't know if he's been in other things. As Herman Munster, I think he's bad. I don't think Rob Zombie's directing any of these people very well, if he even is capable of that. But Sheri Moon Zombie's a terrible actress, and it's just another case of, you know, of Rob Zombie putting his wife into these movies because she's his wife, and that's why. Not because she's talented, not because she's right for the role, you know, not because, oh, she's going to bring something to, no, it's just because that's his wife, and that's what he's doing. It's like, it's just shameless. It's blatant fucking nepotism, and it's embarrassing. She's horrible in the movie. I mean, you look at the trailer, look at the line she's given. I mean, even if she was given the greatest dialogue in the world, I just don't feel like she'd be able to deliver it. She's one of those people I'm just like, hey, no offense to her as a human being, but I just feel like she cannot act. I have not seen her in anything where she seems like she's doing a performance, like at all. Daniel Roebuck, who has been around for quite a while, I think he's like in The Fugitive. He's one of the guards in The Fugitive. He plays Grandpa. He's the Count, as he's referred to in this movie. And he's not very good. They give him a lot of the jokes. And the other thing, let me say about the jokes. It's like they expected there was going to be a laugh track. Did you guys get the sense that, apparently not, she's trashing me too. There you go. All right, fair enough. There's some things I need to learn about Sheri Moon Zombie behind the scenes. I'm not familiar with like her personal life, so not surprised to hear that though. Not surprised to hear that. But with Daniel Roebuck, my other point, I'm sorry. I got off track. It's almost like, because they'll do their joke, but it's almost like they're waiting for like a pause, like that canned audience. Oh, the audience is laughing. And I was like, was there supposed to be a laugh track in this movie? Because there are times where I'm like, it feels like maybe it would help it to fill in just the silence, the awkward silences in between everyone's stand-up routines. But it really did feel to me in a number of times that they really were like almost waiting and pausing and then doing their lines again and waiting for like a laugh track. I don't know. I'm not sure. But anyway, with his performance, he's just doing the same, shtick as anybody else. telling jokes that are just not funny. The comedic, no one's comedic timing is there's no flow to anything. It's like, I'm gonna say my line. Okay, now you say your line. They say your line. I'm gonna say this joke. Now you say this joke. That's all it is. That's all it is. Like, there's no chemistry with everybody. Now listen, you have some actors who I actually like. You have Richard Burke, who I know, or excuse me, not Richard Burke, Richard Brake, who has been in dozens and dozens of films. I know that he's worked with Rob Zombie and some other stuff too. He is a good actor. I've seen him be a good actor in things. And he plays basically the Dr. Frankenstein character, Dr. Frankenstein character that creates Herman. He's not Frankenstein. I think his name is like Wolfgang, Dr. Wolfgang or something. Again, he's told to play it really broad, and I don't know if this guy has experience with comedy, but you wouldn't know by watching his performance. Pretty bad. Pretty bad, in my opinion. And you even have a veteran actor who has been in a ton of stuff for decades, Sylvester McCoy, who, sci-fi fans probably best know him for playing the Doctor in one of the Doctor Who series, Chad. He was one of those versions of the character. He plays the character of Igor, who doesn't really look like Igor in like as we typically view him. They have a hunchback in here, but I think his name is like Floop or something like that. Any case, he's in there, and he's basically the comedic foil for Grandpa, for the Count, and they don't give him anything to do. They don't give him anything to do, Chad. He's just a short guy that, occasionally serves them and sets up funny bits, but they're never funny. Yeah, no, there's other people in the movie. There's other actors, but I don't care. I don't care enough to talk about them, Chad. They're not worth talking about. I don't think, it's all their fault. Sheri Moon Zombie, however, I think it is, because she's just a terrible actor. But yeah, to wrap up, really thinking about it, listen, I can see some people being into the aesthetics of this movie, the color palette and such. Hey, if you really like just getting Halloween decorations from Party City or Spirit Halloween, you're like, that's your thing. You're like, I love decorating my house, my outside. Then you're like, it's like what I do for my house. It's like I do for my inside. I throw my Halloween party. You might like that. It's like that can be fun, but it's not for me. It's just not for me. The film is everything that infamous trailer showcased it would be. It's just a very bad movie that is an absolute waste of time, especially right now when there are so many better horror films out there, chat. Barbarian most recently, horror, just things that involve horror. I'm not saying that this is not a horror movie, but horror aesthetics or horror comedies, right? Things like Barbarian, things like Pearl. There's just so much material out there to love and appreciate. X, which came out earlier, but yeah, you could pick a horror comedy out of a bag and it'll be better than something like The Munsters. I can give you a dozen recommendations right now, chat, and it's better than Munsters. It would not be hard to do. It's as it stands for myself. The Munsters is one of the worst films of the year, and yet another terrible, horrible Rob Zombie movie, chat. When I was thinking about I would give this a rating. I'm like, would I give it a fuck you? I was thinking low some bullshit, but I can't think of anything really too nice to say other than what I said in the beginning. It's like, I can appreciate you wanted to do something different, that this wasn't the show again. Hey, let's explore the origins of the show. It's like, okay. But other than that, but the thing is, they don't do that well. They don't do that. They don't land. They don't execute the idea well. And so I'm just like, fuck, this is an overly long, unfunny. The fact that it's a comedy, chat, and there are no jokes that work, nothing lands, that makes the movie feel even longer. The fact this is an hour and 45 minutes is just egregious. It's like, stop it. You should know better. This to me, this is the very definition on the double toasted scale, chat, of a fuck you. Terrible. I do not recommend watching. If you want to watch it, chat, be my guest. Never going to tell you not to watch something, but just be prepared for the type of movie that you're getting into. A piece of shit. Oh, what about you guys? What about you out there? Have you seen the movie? What do you think? Do you share my opinions on this, chat? I'm very curious. It just came out today. How do you guys feel about it?